Welcome back to Moonmine Temple. Tonight, as you settle in for rest, you'll discover ancient wisdom that has transformed lives for centuries. These are not ordinary stories, but gateways to understanding yourself and the world more deeply. Many have shared how these teachings bring not just deeper sleep, but clarity that follows into waking life, insights appearing just when needed most. This is the hidden power of these ancient tales. They work within us in ways our conscious minds cannot always grasp. Tonight's journey begins with something special, principles so profound yet practical that they formed the foundation for Zen's first arrival in the Western world. What might change if your heart could burn with commitment while your eyes remained as cool as dead ashes? As your body grows heavier, allow these teachings to meet you exactly where you are. Simply receive them as you would the sound of distant waves, without effort, without struggle. Let each breath carry you deeper into relaxation as we begin our journey. Allow yourself to drift even deeper now, each breath carrying you further into this peaceful state of receptivity. Feel the gentle weight of relaxation spreading through your body as your mind opens to receive ancient wisdom that bridges centuries and continents. Journey with me now to the dawn of the 20th century, when Eastern and Western worlds were beginning to exchange not just goods, but profound spiritual ideas. You find yourself aboard a steamship crossing the vast Pacific Ocean. The year is 1893, and the vessel moves steadily through rolling waves, leaving Japan behind as it approaches the distant shores of America. Salt spray occasionally mists the air, and seabirds circle overhead, their calls barely audible above the rhythmic churning of the ship's engines. The wooden deck beneath your feet vibrates slightly with the power of the massive steam-driven propellers pushing the vessel forward. Near the ship's railing stands a remarkable figure, a Japanese monk in traditional robes that flow gently in the ocean breeze. This is Soyen Shaku, the first Zen master to set foot on American soil, traveling to represent Buddhism at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. His face, serene yet alert, reveals both deep contemplation and keen observation as he watches the endless horizon where sea meets sky. Though of modest height, something in his bearing commands attention, a natural dignity that draws respectful glances from passing crew members and fellow passengers alike. Approach closer and notice the small leather-bound journal that rests in his hands. Its pages flutter slightly in the breeze as he writes with careful precision, brush strokes forming characters that bridge ancient wisdom and the emerging modern world. These are not casual notes or passing observations, but something more essential, personal principles, distilled from decades of rigorous practice and deep reflection. He pauses occasionally, looking out at the vast ocean as if drawing inspiration from its boundless expanse. A young Japanese student approaches respectfully. This is D.T. Suzuki, who will later become famous for introducing Zen to Western audiences through his prolific writings. For now, though, he is simply a devoted disciple, accompanying his teacher on this unprecedented journey. "Master," Suzuki says with a deep bow, "many of the American scholars we will meet have asked for practical guidance on incorporating Zen principles into daily life. They admire the philosophy, but struggle to understand how it translates to action. He gestures toward the journal. "May I ask what you are writing?" Soyen Shaku turns to his student, his eyes reflecting both compassion and intensity. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, yet carries clearly above the ambient sounds of the ship. There is a quality to his words that suggests they arise not from casual thought, but from the depths of lived experience. "I am setting down the principles that guide my own daily practice," he explains. "Not abstract philosophy or complex doctrine, but simple rules for living that embody Zen understanding." He looks back at the ocean's vastness. The Americans are right to ask for practical guidance. Zen without daily application is merely an intellectual exercise. Feel the profound sincerity in his manner, how his words emerge not from theory, but from a lifetime of aligning his actions with his deepest insights. There is nothing performative in his demeanor, no sense that he is constructing a spiritual persona. Rather, he embodies the natural integration of ordinary life and profound realization. "May I see what you have written, Master?" asks Suzuki tentatively. Soyen Shaku hands him the journal with neither pride nor hesitation. "These are the practices I return to each day," he says simply. "They form the container for my life." Watch as Suzuki's expression changes while reading the Master's principles, surprise giving way to deepening appreciation. "Master," he says finally, "these are so ordinary. Yet somehow, in their simplicity, they contain everything." "The most profound truths are often the most simple," responds Soyen Shaku, a hint of a smile softening his serious expression. "It is their application that transforms them from mere words to living wisdom." As Suzuki returns the journal, a sudden gust of wind catches the pages, revealing the Master's careful brush strokes. Though written in Japanese characters, you find you can somehow understand the principles that will later become known to Western students and form the foundation for Zen practice in America. In the morning before dressing, light incense and meditate. Feel the power in this first principle, how it establishes practice as the foundation of each day, preceding even the most basic activities like dressing. There is no separation between spiritual life and ordinary life. Meditation comes before everything, setting the tone for all that follows. Retire at a regular hour, partake of food at regular intervals, eat with moderation, and never to the point of satisfaction. Notice the emphasis on regularity and moderation, how these simple disciplines create a structured container for freedom rather than constraints that limit it. By establishing clear rhythms for basic bodily needs, the mind becomes free to focus on deeper matters, rather than being constantly pulled by changing desires and impulses. Receive a guest with the same attitude you have when alone. When alone, maintain the same attitude you have in receiving guests. Experience the profound challenge in this principle, the call to absolute authenticity that transcends social masks and private indulgences. There is no performance self for public consumption and true self for private moments, only continuous integrity across all contexts. Watch what you say, and whatever you say, practice it. Feel the weight of this simple instruction that cuts through hypocrisy and empty talk. Words and actions are not separate realms. Each spoken commitment becomes a sacred promise to be fulfilled through concrete behavior. When an opportunity comes, do not let it pass by, yet always think twice before acting. Sense the perfect balance embodied here, neither the hesitation that misses life's openings, nor the impulsivity that rushes forward without discernment. There is both responsiveness to the moment and the wisdom of reflection, creating action that is both timely and considered. Do not regret the past. Look to the future. Experience the liberation in this principle, the release from the weight of unchangeable history, combined with purposeful orientation toward what can still be shaped. Neither trapped in regret nor untethered from learning, this middle path directs energy where it can be most effective. Have the fearless attitude of a hero and the loving heart of a child. Feel the beautiful integration of seemingly opposite qualities, courage and tenderness, strength and openness, the warrior's resolve and the child's wonder. This is not an either or proposition, but a both, and invitation to wholeness. Upon retiring, sleep as if you had entered your last sleep. Upon awakening, leave your bed behind you instantly as if you had cast away a pair of old shoes. Notice how this final principle infuses even the most ordinary daily transitions with profound significance. Sleep approached with the completeness of final release, awakening embraced with immediate presence and forward movement. Nothing taken for granted, nothing merely routine, every moment fully inhabited. As Suzuki finishes reading, he looks up at his teacher with new understanding. The Americans may expect something more exotic, he observes. These principles seem so simple. Soyen Shaku's eyes meet his students directly. Simple, yes. Easy, no. His voice takes on a new intensity as he adds, "My heart burns like fire, but my eyes are as cold as dead ashes." Feel the power of this statement, the perfect complementarity it expresses. The burning heart of passionate commitment, the cool eyes of dispassionate observation. Neither cold detachment nor blind fervor, but both qualities held in dynamic balance. This is not theory, but Soyen Shaku's lived reality, the integration of opposites that transcends apparent contradiction. "I understand, Master," Suzuki responds quietly, bowing again before departing to attend to his duties. As the ship continues its journey across the vast Pacific, Soyen Shaku returns to his writing, adding final refinements to principles that will eventually influence generations of practitioners in lands he has yet to see. His presence on the deck embodies the very balance his words describe, fully engaged yet perfectly at ease, intensely focused, yet completely open to the vast horizon stretching before him. The principles in his journal are not abstract ideals, but the lived reality of the man himself, demonstrated in each breath, each step, each interaction. This story reveals the profound practicality at the heart of Zen teaching. While many spiritual traditions offer lofty philosophical concepts or complex metaphysical systems, Soyen Shaku distilled his wisdom into concrete daily practices that anyone might attempt, regardless of culture or background. These principles bridge the gap between profound realization and ordinary life, between Eastern tradition and Western seekers, between ancient wisdom and modern application. What makes these guidelines so powerful is their integration of apparent opposites: structure and flexibility, discipline and spontaneity, tradition and innovation. They establish clear forms without becoming rigid dogma. They provide specific practices while pointing toward the boundless awareness that transcends all techniques. Like the master himself, whose heart burned with passion while his eyes remained cool with clarity, these principles invite us to discover wholeness through embracing complementary aspects of our nature rather than choosing between them. As you continue to relax deeply, consider how these simple yet profound guidelines might illuminate your own life. Rather than approaching them as a checklist of shoulds or external obligations, feel how they might reveal natural rhythms and balances already present, but perhaps overlooked in your daily experience. Like Soyin Shaku's burning heart and cool eyes, we all contain seeming opposites that, when properly integrated, create not contradiction but wholeness. These principles offer not rigid rules, but invitations to discover what living with full presence might mean in the unique circumstances of your own journey. As you continue to drift peacefully in this relaxed state, allow yourself to journey now to ancient India, to a time when Buddha himself walked among ordinary people, teaching through direct encounter rather than abstract philosophy. Feel your awareness expanding as we travel across centuries to witness an unexpected meeting that reveals profound wisdom through the most unlikely teacher. You find yourself on a dusty road leading to a small village near the city of Sravasti. The afternoon sun beats down warmly, sending shimmering waves of heat rising from the earth. Slender trees offer occasional patches of shade along the path, their leaves rustling gently in the breeze that carries the mingled scents of cooking fires, ripening fruit, and sun-warmed earth. Birds call to one another from concealed perches, while distant sounds of human activity, voices, laughter, the rhythmic pounding of grain, float from the village ahead. Walking toward you along this road comes a large group of people surrounding a central figure who moves with remarkable grace and purpose. Even from a distance, there is something extraordinary about this person, not in any outward display of wealth or power, but in a quality of presence that seems to create a field of calm awareness around him. This is Siddhartha Gautama, known as the Buddha, the Awakened One, traveling with his disciples to share his teachings of liberation. His simple saffron robe and shaved head mark him as a renunciate, yet his bearing suggests not deprivation, but profound fulfillment. As they draw nearer, you can observe the varied group that accompanies him. Monks in simple robes walk closest to their teacher, their faces reflecting deep respect and attentiveness. Behind them follow lay people of all kinds, merchants and farmers, the wealthy and the poor, young and old, drawn by the Buddha's reputation for wisdom and compassion. Their expressions range from curious interest to devoted reverence, some simply hoping to catch a glimpse of this renowned teacher, others seeking answers to life's deepest questions. The Buddha pauses near a large banyan tree, that offers welcome shade from the afternoon heat. His disciples gather around, creating a natural space where he might rest and perhaps share some teaching. A small wooden bowl of water is respectfully offered and accepted with a simple nod of thanks. There is no fanfare, no ceremony, just the natural rhythm of travelers taking brief respite before continuing their journey. It is at this moment that you notice a figure approaching from the direction of the village, an elderly woman bent with age, moving with the deliberate care of someone whose body has weathered many decades of labor. Her simple clothing marks her as someone of modest means, perhaps even impoverished, yet there is a striking dignity in her carriage. Her face, deeply lined by sun and years, wears an expression of unmistakable determination. She carries a small bundle of sticks for her cooking fire, though it seems almost too heavy for her thin arms. The gathered crowd parts slightly as she approaches, perhaps assuming she wishes to receive a blessing or teaching from the Buddha. But something in her expression suggests a different purpose. Her eyes, bright and direct despite her advanced age, focus not with reverence, but with what appears to be critical assessment, even disapproval. The disciples exchange glances, sensing something unusual about to unfold. The old woman stops directly before the Buddha, setting down her bundle of sticks with a small sigh of relief. For a long moment, she simply studies him, this renowned teacher whose wisdom and compassion are celebrated throughout the region. The Buddha returns her gaze with perfect equanimity, neither encouraging nor discouraging whatever she might have come to say. In his expression, you see neither the expectation of praise nor the anticipation of criticism, but simply open, attentive presence. "So you are the one they call the Buddha," she finally says, her voice surprisingly strong for one so physically frail. "The one who teaches loving, kindness toward all beings." "I am," he responds simply, with neither pride nor false modesty. Feel the tension rippling through the gathered disciples as the woman's face hardens into an expression of clear skepticism. This is not how most approach their revered teacher. "They say you have great wisdom," she continues, "that your compassion extends to all creatures without exception, that you teach a path of liberation from suffering." Her tone suggests she finds these claims questionable at best. The Buddha neither confirms nor denies these descriptions, simply remaining present and attentive to the elderly woman before him. His silence creates space for whatever may emerge, neither defending his reputation nor seeking to persuade. "I have been watching you and your followers pass through our village many times," she says, gesturing toward the path they have traveled. "Each time, the same thing happens. People bring you food and gifts. They bow at your feet and praise your great compassion." Her voice takes on an edge of unmistakable criticism. "Yet I notice something strange about this famous loving kindness of yours." The disciples shift uncomfortably, several appearing ready to intercede should this elderly critic become too disrespectful. Yet the Buddha himself remains completely at ease, his expression reflecting only genuine interest in what the woman has to say. There is not a trace of defensiveness in his manner. When people speak kindly to you, you speak kindly to them in return, the woman continues, her voice growing more forceful. When they praise you, you respond with gentle smiles. When they treat you with respect, you return their respect. She leans forward slightly, her aged finger pointing directly at the Buddha in a gesture few would dare. This is not loving kindness. This is merely trading pleasantries with those who already adore you. Experience the collective intake of breath among the disciples, the shock at what seems like profound disrespect toward their teacher. Several of the younger monks look to their senior brothers, clearly expecting some intervention. Yet the Buddha himself remains perfectly serene, giving the woman his complete attention, as receptive to her criticism as he would be to the highest praise. Anyone can be kind to those who are kind to them, the old woman declares. Even the tax collectors and criminals do that much. Where is this special compassion you're so famous for? I see no evidence of it. Her challenge hangs in the air like the heat waves rising from the dusty road. The gathered crowd has fallen completely silent, all eyes moving between the elderly critic and the serene teacher. How will he respond to such direct, public criticism? The Buddha's face breaks into a warm, genuine smile, not the defensive smile of someone trying to diffuse tension, but the appreciative smile of someone who has just received an unexpected gift. You are quite right, he says, his voice gentle yet clear enough for all to hear. Simple reciprocity is not what I mean by loving kindness. Thank you for this important reminder. He bows slightly to the woman, a gesture of sincere respect that causes another ripple of surprise among his followers. Tell me, he continues, if someone were to offer you a gift, but you decline to accept it, to whom would the gift belong? The old woman's eyes narrow slightly as she considers this unexpected question. To the giver, of course, she answers. If I don't accept it, it remains with the one who offered it. The Buddha nods. And so it is with anger and criticism. If I do not accept and hold on to the negativity offered to me, it remains with the giver. His voice carries no trace of superiority or defensiveness, only a clear sharing of understanding. This is not a matter of pride or spiritual accomplishment. It is simply recognizing the nature of reality. Watch as the woman's expression shifts, not suddenly transforming from criticism to adoration, but subtly opening as something in the Buddha's response touches her differently than she had anticipated. She had clearly expected either defensive anger or perhaps patronizing tolerance, but she has received neither, only genuine presence and respect. But what of my criticism itself? She presses, though her tone has lost some of its edge. Do you deny its truth? On the contrary, replies the Buddha, I welcome it. The truth you offer is valuable, regardless of how it is delivered. Loving kindness is indeed meaningless if extended only to those who please us. He gestures toward his disciples. We are all learning this lesson together, myself included. Several of the monks nod in acknowledgement, their initial discomfort with the woman's approach now transformed into appreciation for the teaching unfolding before them. Then you are not offended by my words, the woman asks, genuine curiosity now mixing with her earlier skepticism. "How could I be offended by truth?" responds the Buddha. "You have reminded all of us of something essential, that true compassion makes no distinctions between the pleasant and unpleasant, the flattering and the critical, those who love us and those who challenge us." His smile deepens with real warmth. "In fact, you have given us a more valuable teaching today than many elegant discourses. Feel the profound shift that has occurred in this unexpected encounter. What began as criticism has been transformed, not through clever argument or spiritual one-upmanship, but through the simple yet profound practice of genuine presence and receptivity. The old woman's bundle of sticks still rests at her feet, but the bundle of assumptions and judgments she carried has been gently set down alongside them. "Perhaps there is something to your teachings after all," she concedes, with the hint of a smile creasing her weathered face. She bends to retrieve her firewood, and the Buddha himself leans forward to help her lift the bundle. Their hands meet briefly in this simple act of cooperation, the renowned spiritual teacher and the elderly critic now connected through an authentic moment of shared humanity. As she continues toward the village, with her bundle of sticks, walking perhaps a little straighter than before, the Buddha turns to his disciples. "That," he says quietly, "is one of our greatest teachers. She has reminded us that loving kindness is not a mere exchange of pleasantries, but a radical openness that makes no distinctions between friend and critic." His gaze follows the old woman's retreating figure with genuine respect. Remember her words, whenever you find yourself extending compassion only to those who treat you well. The woman's bundle of sticks offers a perfect metaphor for what occurred in this encounter. Like those sticks, ordinary, rough-hewn, seemingly valueless, her criticism contained hidden fire, the potential to illuminate rather than just burn. Had the Buddha reacted defensively, that potential would have been wasted, reduced to mere conflict. Instead, he recognized the fire within her words and allowed it to bring warmth rather than destruction. We build elaborate fortresses to protect ourselves from criticism. Behind walls of justification, we sort the world into allies who affirm us and adversaries who challenge us. What if these categories are the very obstacles to the connection we seek? The Buddha's smile in the face of criticism wasn't spiritual bypassing or emotional suppression. It was recognition that the old woman's words contained precisely the test of authenticity that his teaching required. She was, unknowingly, completing the very circle of understanding she doubted existed. If I do not accept and hold on to the negativity offered to me, it remains with the giver. These words contain a subtle but crucial distinction. The Buddha didn't claim immunity from criticism or suggest that her words had no impact. He acknowledged receiving them fully while not allowing them to define or diminish him. This isn't detachment in the sense of disconnection. It's engagement without entanglement, resonance without reactivity. The line between these approaches is razor thin, yet makes all the difference. As you drift towards sleep, imagine what might shift if you approach the next difficult conversation in your life, not as a problem to solve or an attack to defend against, but as an old woman with a bundle of sticks, someone bearing both a burden and a gift. What criticism have you rejected that might contain an ember of truth? What challenging person in your life might be, like the old woman, an unexpected teacher bearing precisely the lesson you need most? The Buddha's response invites us beyond the binary trap of accepting criticism as completely valid or rejecting it as utterly false, toward a third way where we extract the truth while leaving behind the emotional charge that often accompanies it. Let your awareness continue to float in this peaceful state as we journey to ancient China, to a mountain monastery where the price of wisdom is sometimes paid in unexpected currency. Feel the weight of your eyelids growing heavier as your mind opens to a story about the fierce determination required on the path to understanding. You find yourself standing in a temple courtyard as winter's first snow begins to fall. Delicate flakes drift silently from a pewter sky, gradually transforming the angular temple roofs and stone pathways into a landscape of gentle curves and unmarked white. Your breath forms small clouds that dissipate into the cold air, joining the thin wisps of smoke rising from incense burners placed at intervals around the courtyard. The scent of cedar and sandalwood mingles with the sharp, clean smell of approaching snow, creating an atmosphere that seems suspended between worlds. Across the courtyard stands the meditation hall, an imposing structure of dark wood that has witnessed centuries of silent seeking. From within comes the faint, rhythmic sound of a wooden fish drum, marking the cadence for seated meditation. The hollow tock, 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 tock pulses like a heartbeat against the muffled silence created by the falling snow. This sound has guided countless practitioners through the long hours of zazen, neither hurrying them nor allowing them to drift into sleep. Through the lightly falling snow, a solitary figure approaches the hall. This is Kyogen, a monk in his mid-30s, who has spent 15 years in rigorous study and practice. His face shows the intensity of someone driven by a question that will allow no peace until answered. The set of his jaw, the furrow between his brows, even the deliberate placement of each footstep reveals both unwavering determination and growing frustration. Snow accumulates on his shoulders and the wide brim of his bamboo hat, but he seems unaware of it, focused entirely on the purpose that drives him forward. As Kyogen reaches the meditation hall, another figure emerges, his teacher, Master Isan, whose serene presence forms a striking contrast to his students' barely contained urgency. Isan's advanced years show in his silvered hair and the deep lines mapping his face, yet there is a youthful alertness in his eyes that misses nothing. His worn robes hang loosely on his spare frame, moving slightly in the winter breeze. Where Kyogen's presence suggests a tightly wound spring, Isan embodies the relaxed attention of someone fully at home in his own skin. "Master," Kyogen says, bowing deeply, "I must speak with you." His voice carries an edge of controlled desperation. Isan returns the bow, then gestures toward a small covered walkway that offers shelter from the falling snow. They walk together in silence, their footsteps leaving parallel tracks across the white courtyard. Once beneath the walkway's roof, they face each other, student and teacher, seeker and guide, question and potential answer. "What troubles you, Kyogen?" asks Isan, his voice neither encouraging nor discouraging what is to come. Feel the weight of the moment as Kyogen gathers himself to speak. His breath comes more rapidly, forming quick clouds that dissolve into the winter air. His hands clench briefly at his sides, then deliberately relax. "Master, I have studied the sutras extensively," he begins. "I have memorized the teachings, analyzed the commentaries, practiced meditation without failing for 15 years. His voice grows more intense with each word. Yet still, I cannot answer the fundamental question, what was my original face before my parents were born? This question, one of Zen's most famous koans, hangs in the air between them, like the suspended snowflakes nearby. It is not a question about physical appearance or family lineage, but about the most essential nature of being, what exists prior to all conditioning, all history, all conceptual understanding. Isan remains silent, his eyes steady on Kyogen's troubled face. Neither rushing to provide an answer nor dismissing the question's importance, he creates a space where the question itself can ripen. "Please, Master," Kyogen continues, his composure beginning to crack, "explain this to me. I have reached the limits of my understanding. I can go no further without your guidance." Watch as Isan's expression shifts, not toward the compassionate explanation Kyogen hopes for, but towards something both gentler and more demanding. "If I explained it to you," he says quietly, "it would become my understanding, not yours." "Then how am I to penetrate this question?" asks Kyogen, frustration evident in every line of his body. "What more can I possibly do? If a man climbs to the top of a 100-foot pole, how can he take one step further?" replies Isan, offering not an answer but another question that seems to compound rather than relieve Kyogen's dilemma. Feel the impact of these words on the desperate student. The image they evoke, a climber who has reached the highest possible point with no apparent way to progress further, perfectly mirrors Kyogen's own sense of having reached the limits of what effort and intellect can achieve. Yet the master's question implies that one more step is not only possible but necessary. "I don't know," Kyogen admits, his voice barely audible above the soft hiss of falling snow. "I have climbed as high as I can. I have exhausted every approach. If you will not guide me further, what am I to do?" Isan looks at his student with eyes that hold both unwavering demand and profound compassion. "Let go," he says simply. With these two words, the master turns and walks away, his footsteps gradually filling with snow, leaving Kyogen alone on the covered walkway. The meditation drum continues its steady toke, 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 from within the hall, counting moments that suddenly feel both precious and unbearable. The weeks that follow bring a visible transformation in Kyogen. He continues his regular duties around the monastery, chopping wood, carrying water, preparing meals, but with a new quality of focused intensity. The frustrated urgency has been replaced by something deeper and more resolved. He speaks little, eats little, sleeps little. Those who pass him in the temple grounds observe that his eyes often seem fixed on something beyond the visible world, as if tracking a quarry only he can perceive. One day, while sweeping a path through the bamboo grove behind the temple, Kyogen's broom dislodges a small stone that flies through the air and strikes a hollow bamboo stalk with a clear, resonant tock. The sound hangs in the air, pure, complete, requiring nothing beyond itself. In that instant, something breaks open in Kyogen's understanding. His face transforms as if a heavy burden has suddenly been lifted from his shoulders. He begins to laugh, not the nervous laughter of confusion or the bitter laughter of defeat, but the clear, joyful laughter of someone who has finally glimpsed what has been present all along. The broom falls from his hands as he stands perfectly still in the bamboo grove, tears streaming down his face while laughter continues to bubble from some newly discovered spring within him. That evening, as darkness falls over the temple complex, Kyogen appears before Master Isan's quarters. His face now shows neither the desperate questioning of their previous encounter nor the manic elation of his experience in the bamboo grove, but a clear-eyed serenity that seems to illuminate him from within. "You have found something," Isan observes, not as a question but as simple recognition. Kyogen bows deeply. "Master, today I heard a stone strike bamboo, and what you could not explain to me became clear without explanation." Isan nods, his eyes reflecting quiet satisfaction. "Will you put it into words?" he asks, testing not whether understanding has occurred, but whether Kyogen recognizes the limitations of verbal expression. "One note of bamboo, and all my questions vanished," replies Kyogen. "All my previous knowledge is like a single hair in the vast sky. All my experience is like a drop of water thrown into a deep ravine." Notice the shift in his response, not an explanation of what he has understood, but an expression of how radically his relationship to knowing itself has transformed. Where once he sought to grasp understanding as something to possess, he now recognizes himself as already inseparable from what he sought. "The pole?" asks Isan, referring to his earlier question about the 100-foot pole. "There is no pole," responds Kyogen with a smile. "There is no climber. There is no step to take." Isan returns the smile, teacher and student meeting in wordless recognition. Nothing more needs to be said about what has been discovered, not because it is secret, but because it exists in a realm where words can only point, never contain. Years pass, and Kyogen himself becomes a respected teacher, guiding others along the path he has traveled. One day, a monk approaches him with the same desperate intensity he once brought to Master Isan. "Master," says the monk, "I have studied diligently and practiced without cease, yet still I am plagued by questions about the nature of mind and reality. Please, resolve my doubts, once and for all." Kyogen looks at the earnest young monk with eyes that see both the question and what lies beneath it. Without speaking, he holds up his hand, extending his index and middle fingers. Then, to the monk's astonishment, he brings his other hand forward, holding a burning candle. With deliberate slowness, he places his extended fingers directly into the flame. The monk gasps in horror as Kyogen maintains this position without flinching, the flesh of his fingers beginning to blacken in the flame. The scent of burning flesh fills the air between them. Yet Kyogen's eyes remain clear and direct, holding the monk's gaze with unwavering presence. "Master, stop!" cries the monk, reaching forward to pull Kyogen's hand from the flame. "Why would you do such a thing?" "I burned my fingers to answer your questions," replies Kyogen calmly, as if the pain were merely an interesting sensation rather than an agony to be avoided. When understanding comes at such a price, how many questions will you continue to bring? In that moment, something shifts in the young monk's perception. He sees not just the physical sacrifice before him, but the deeper truth it embodies, that the path to understanding demands not endless questioning but complete commitment, not intellectual accumulation, but the willingness to let everything burn away, even one's most basic instincts for comfort and safety. His questions, which had seemed so urgent and essential moments before, suddenly appear as what they truly are, attempts to reach through thinking what can only be grasped through direct experience. The monk backs away, bowing deeply, then turns and leaves without another word. The questions that drove him to seek Kyogen's teaching have not been answered, but they have been transcended, replaced not by new concepts, but by a visceral recognition of what genuine understanding requires. This stark story cuts through our comfortable assumptions about spiritual seeking. We often approach wisdom like shoppers browsing merchandise, sampling teachings, collecting insights, looking for the perfect explanation that will satisfy our intellectual curiosity, while demanding nothing more substantial than our attention. Kyogen's burning fingers offer a radically different perspective, that genuine understanding is not purchased with questions, but with our entire being. The sound of stone striking bamboo that triggered Kyogen's awakening wasn't special in itself. Similar sounds had surely occurred countless times during his years of practice. What changed was his capacity to hear it, a capacity developed not through accumulating more knowledge, but through reaching the limits of what knowledge could provide. Only when he exhausted every conceptual approach, when he climbed to the top of the 100-foot pole and found himself with nowhere left to go, did the possibility of letting go become not just an idea, but the only viable path forward. In your own life, notice where you might be treating understanding as a possession to acquire, rather than a capacity to embody. Consider the questions that drive you. Are they bridges toward direct experience or substitutes for it? Like Kyogen before his awakening, we often believe that one more book, one more teaching, one more explanation will finally resolve our fundamental questions, when what's actually required is a willingness to risk everything we think we know. The burning fingers remind us that true wisdom often enters not through the front door of careful study, but through the unexpected side entrance of complete presence, even, or especially, in moments of intensity we might ordinarily avoid. Not because suffering itself is valuable, but because our habitual strategies for avoiding discomfort often keep us trapped in precisely the limited understanding we seek to transcend. When we're willing to stay present, even as everything we cling to burns away, what remains is not a new answer, but a new relationship to the question itself, one where the questioner and the questioned are revealed as never having been separate at all. Ikkyu's well. Feel your body becoming heavier now, melting into your mattress as we travel together to medieval Japan. The gentle rhythm of your breath carries you deeper into this state of peaceful receptivity. As you sink further into relaxation, imagine the weight of your eyelids growing impossibly heavy. You are now in 15th century Kyoto. Feel the cool evening air against your skin as lanterns glow in the distance. The sweet scent of cherry blossoms mingles with wood smoke. The sound of distant flutes reaches your ears. You find yourself approaching an elegant mansion where servants hurry about, preparing for an important gathering. Inside, a wealthy silk merchant paces anxiously, checking every detail. Feel the smooth wooden floors beneath your feet. Notice the perfectly arranged cushions, the gleaming lacquerware, the musicians tuning their instruments in the corner. The air carries the tantalizing aroma of rare delicacies being prepared in the kitchen. The merchant has spared no expense for this dinner party. Master Ikkyu must be impressed, he whispers to his chief servant. His presence will elevate my standing among all of Kyoto's elite. You feel his nervous anticipation, as if it were your own. As distinguished guests arrive in their silken finery, notice how each bow and greeting follows the precise choreography of status and obligation. The conversations, political alliances, business ventures, carefully disguised rivalries create a tapestry of social positioning. Yet beneath this refined surface, you sense an undercurrent of tension, of hidden calculations, and silent judgments. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. A figure appears at the entrance, wild-haired, dressed in simple worn robes, carrying only a wooden begging bowl. His eyes seem to look through rather than at people. This is Ikkyu, the unconventional Zen master known throughout Japan for his unpredictable wisdom. Feel the merchant's nervous relief as he hurries forward, bowing too deeply. Master Ikkyu, what an honor to welcome you to my humble home. The word humble catches in his throat as he gestures toward the obvious opulence surrounding them. Ikkyu simply nods and follows him inside. Notice the immediate hush that falls over the gathering. Experience through your own senses how the carefully cultivated social atmosphere gives way to genuine curiosity. The wild-haired monk sits cross-legged at the place of honor, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The conversations gradually resume around him, growing louder as servants bring dish after exquisite dish. Listen to the delicate clink of ceramic, the murmur of voices, the occasional burst of carefully measured laughter. Feel the merchant's growing unease as Ikkyu eats modestly, neither praising nor criticizing the lavish food. This silence somehow disturbs the host more than any criticism could. As the evening progresses and sake cups are repeatedly filled, you sense a building tension in the room. It breaks unexpectedly when Ikkyu suddenly rises to his feet. Feel the immediate attention his movement commands. Honored host, Ikkyu says with a respectful bow, might I trouble you for a simple cup of water from your well? Experience the ripple of confusion passing through the room. Water? Common well water, when the finest sake in Kyoto flows freely. The merchant blinks, momentarily puzzled, then recovers. Of course, Master Ikkyu. My servant will bring fresh water immediately. I would prefer to draw it myself, Ikkyu replies, his voice gentle but firm. "If you would show me to your well." Follow them now as curiosity draws several guests into the garden. Feel the immediate relief of cool night air after the warmth of the crowded room. Above, the full moon hangs like a perfect silver coin. Its light washes everything in ethereal clarity: the carefully tended pines, the stone lanterns, the moss-covered ground. In one corner stands a simple stone well. Approach it with IQ and the others. Feel the cool, rough stone beneath your fingers as you join them in leaning forward to peer into its depths. Far below, the dark water holds a perfect reflection of the moon, complete despite the well's narrow opening. Watch as IQ reaches for the wooden bucket and rope. The creak of the pulley cuts through the night, somehow both ordinary and profound. When the bucket reaches the water, disturbing the moon's reflection, IQ pauses. "Look," he says simply. "What do you see?" The moon reflected on the water offers one guest. Yes, the full moon, perfectly captured, adds another. Feel IQ's presence, calm, attentive, fully embodied, as he nods and speaks. The moon travels thousands of miles through the heavens, yet its reflection rests perfectly within this humble well, undisturbed until the water is troubled. His voice carries easily in the night air. The water reflects the moon no differently than the emperor's garden lake. The moon shows no preference. It illuminates mansions and hovels with the same light. Watch as he draws up the bucket and drinks deeply. The sound of his swallowing seems somehow significant in the expectant silence. "Delicious," he sighs, "more refreshing than any sake." His eyes now meet each person present. This well water quenches thirst perfectly, asking nothing in return. It does not care if the drinker is rich or poor, noble or common. It simply gives of itself completely. Feel the weight of this moment as IQ hands the bucket to the merchant. The water sloshes gently, moonlight dancing on its surface. "Your hospitality has been generous," IQ continues, "but I wonder, is it like this well water, offered freely without thought of status or return? Or is it more like a transaction, given with the expectation of enhancing your reputation?" You sense the merchant's sudden discomfort. A nearby official steps forward defensively. "Are you suggesting our host's generosity is flawed? He has provided the finest of everything." Experience IQ's calm presence as he responds. "I offer no criticism, only an observation. The universe itself is like this well. It gives sunlight, rain, and air freely to all beings. The flowers do not bloom more vibrantly for the wealthy." He gestures to the moon above. True generosity, like true wisdom, makes no distinctions and expects nothing in return. Feel the profound shift as understanding dawns on the merchant's face. His laughter bubbles up, not the careful social chuckle of before, but something genuine and liberating. "You are right, Master IQ. I invited you to impress my guests, not to hear truth. I have been giving like a merchant, always calculating the return, rather than giving like this well. His voice carries new awareness. Thank you for this lesson. It is worth more than all the rare delicacies I have served tonight. As they return to the banquet hall, notice how the very quality of the air seems changed. Ikkyu raises his sake cup. Friends, your host has shown me his remarkable well. In its honor, I propose we enjoy this gathering not as people of different ranks, but simply as human beings sharing this fleeting moment under the same moon. Watch as the evening transforms. Conversations deepen beyond social positioning. The merchant moves among his guests with new authenticity, no longer monitoring impressions, but genuinely connecting. And Ikkyu, the wild-haired monk who arrived with nothing, becomes the heart of the gathering with stories and insights that seem perfectly tailored to each person. As the night ends and guests depart, feel the merchant's profound gratitude as he bows to Ikkyu. You arrived with nothing yet gave me the most valuable gift I have ever received. Ikkyu smiles. I gave you nothing you did not already possess. I merely showed you the well that has always been in your garden. With that, he disappears into the moonlit night. As you drift deeper into relaxation, consider the wells in your own life, those simple sources of clarity so easily overlooked. Like the merchant, we often seek satisfaction in elaborate displays while missing the perfect reflection of the moon in ordinary water. The well gives without calculation or expectation, a natural generosity that asks nothing in return. Notice how often your own giving might carry subtle expectations of gratitude, recognition, or future benefit. The universe itself gives freely: sunlight, air, the beauty of the moon, making no distinctions between worthy and unworthy recipients. This is the essence of Buddha nature, reflected in each of us when our minds become still and clear like undisturbed water. Allow the image of the moon reflected in the well to remain in your mind as you sink even deeper into this restful state. Like that reflection, perfect, yet ephemeral, all experiences arise and pass away. Our grasping at status and recognition cannot provide lasting satisfaction. Yet in recognizing this truth, we open ourselves to a more authentic way of being, one that gives freely, reflects clearly, and appreciates the ordinary magic of existence. As you continue to drift into deeper relaxation, feel your body growing heavier, your thoughts becoming quieter, as we journey to a moonlit monastery in ancient China. Here, a young nun is about to discover that what we seek most desperately may already be within our grasp. Imagine a small temple, nestled against forested hills. Stone paths wind between simple wooden buildings, their roofs curved gently toward the sky. The air carries the subtle fragrance of incense and pine. Crickets create a gentle symphony that rises and falls with the evening breeze. Moonlight bathes everything in a silvery glow, transforming the ordinary world into something otherworldly and profound. A young nun named Chiyono moves quietly through the temple grounds. Unlike the other nuns who have retired for the evening, she carries a wooden bucket toward the well at the eastern edge of the monastery. Feel the cool wooden handle against her palms, the slight weight of the empty bucket swinging gently with each step. Her face, illuminated occasionally by moonlight filtering through the trees, reveals both determination and frustration. Chiyono has studied diligently for many years, yet enlightenment, that direct experience of reality, which all Buddhist practitioners seek, has eluded her. Tonight, like many nights before, she has chosen to practice mindfulness during the simple task of drawing water. Perhaps here, in this ordinary activity, she might find the extraordinary insight that has escaped her during formal meditation. Approaching the well, she sees its stone circle gleaming in the moonlight. The water within reflects the full moon perfectly, a luminous disk captured in the dark circle below. For a moment, she pauses, gazing at this reflection. How strange, she thinks, that something so distant could appear so immediate, so present in the humble water of this well. Watch as Chiyono lowers her bucket carefully into the well. The rope slides through her hands, slightly rough against her skin. The bucket makes a soft splash as it meets the water's surface, temporarily distorting the moon's reflection into scattered light. She begins to draw the bucket upward, feeling the weight of water adding resistance to her pull. As the filled bucket reaches the top of the well, Chiyono notices something concerning. There is a crack in the wooden base of the bucket, not large, but enough that water is already beginning to leak through. She quickly transfers the bucket to her shoulder, hoping to reach the kitchen before losing too much water. Feel the coolness of the water against her shoulder as a few drops escape through the crack, running down her arm. She steps carefully along the stone path, focusing intently on keeping the bucket balanced. The weight of the water makes each step deliberate, mindful. Her entire awareness narrows to this simple yet challenging task, carrying water in a cracked vessel. Halfway back to the kitchen, something unexpected happens. The bottom of the bucket suddenly gives way completely. In an instant, all the water rushes out, soaking Chiyono's robes and splashing onto the stone path. The empty bucket feels suddenly, strangely light in her hands. In this moment of surprise, this perfect catastrophe, something shifts in Chiyono's perception. As the water splashes around her feet, reflecting fragments of moonlight like scattered jewels, she sees the moon still perfectly reflected in each puddle, each droplet. No longer contained in the bucket, the reflection multiplies, dancing in every direction. Experience with her the sudden, overwhelming insight that floods her awareness. The moon she had tried to capture in the bucket was never truly contained there. It was merely a reflection, yet somehow completely real. Now, with the water released from its container, the moon is everywhere, in every droplet, in every puddle, never having moved from the sky yet present in each fragment of water. A sound of pure joy escapes her lips, not quite laughter, not quite a cry, but something that arises spontaneously from the deepest part of her being. The wooden bucket falls forgotten from her hands. She stands perfectly still, soaked in water and moonlight, as understanding washes through her more completely than the water itself. In this ordinary moment of a broken bucket, Chiyono attains the enlightenment she has sought for so many years. The truth she has pursued through countless hours of meditation, through the study of sacred texts, and the guidance of venerated teachers, reveals itself in this most mundane of accidents. Later, when asked about her experience, Chiyono composes a simple poem to express what cannot truly be captured in words. In this way and that, I tried to save the old pail since the bamboo strip was weakening and about to break until at last the bottom fell out. No more water in the pail, no more moon in the water. Her words, like ripples spreading from a dropped stone, touch something essential in all who hear them. The other nuns and monks recognize in her simple verse the expression of profound realization. She becomes known as one of the enlightened ones of her generation, her story and poem passed down through centuries to reach us tonight. As you continue to relax deeply, consider what Chiyono's experience might reveal about your own journey. How often do we strive to contain and control that which cannot truly be possessed? The water in the bucket was real, yet the moon it reflected was both there and not there, a perfect paradox that points toward the nature of all reality. Our minds, like buckets, attempt to hold concepts and experiences, to capture and preserve understanding. Yet the deepest insights often come precisely when the container breaks, when our conceptual understanding falls away, and we directly experience the uncontainable nature of reality. Notice in your own life where you might be trying to carry water in a cracked bucket, holding tightly to concepts, beliefs, or identities that are ultimately as fluid as water, as ungraspable as a reflection. Perhaps the very things you most wish to attain, peace, wisdom, awakening, are already present, not as something to be captured and held, but as the very nature of awareness itself. As you drift towards sleep, imagine your own conceptual bucket gently breaking, allowing the water of thought to return to its natural state of flow. Feel the relief of no longer needing to carry, to contain, to preserve. The moon continues to shine, regardless of whether any bucket captures its reflection. Your true nature continues to be what it always has been, unconstrained, illuminated, complete. No more water in the pail, no more moon in the water. In this letting go, in this sweet surrender, the path to awakening reveals itself not as something to achieve, but as the simple recognition of what has always been true. Rest in this understanding as sleep gently embraces you, knowing that like Chiyono, your deepest wisdom may arrive in the most unexpected moments, not when you grasp most tightly, but when you finally allow everything to fall away. Feel yourself becoming more relaxed with each breath, your body growing heavier as we journey together to a mountaintop monastery in ancient Japan. The world around you begins to fade as you're transported across time and space to witness a simple yet profound teaching that has guided seekers for centuries. Let each word carry you deeper into this state of peaceful receptivity. Picture a small Zen monastery nestled among pine trees, its wooden buildings weathered by countless seasons. Morning mist clings to the mountainside, softening the edges of the world. Birds call to one another as the first light of dawn filters through branches. The air carries the scent of damp earth and wood smoke from the kitchen fire. This is a place where life follows the rhythm of nature, rising with the sun, working with mindful attention, resting when darkness falls. In this monastery lives an elderly Zen master named Hyakujo. Though well into his 80s, he continues to work alongside his students each day, tending the garden, chopping wood, carrying water. His weathered hands tell the story of a lifetime of both physical labor and spiritual practice. The deep lines on his face map decades of wisdom earned through direct experience. Despite his advanced age, he moves with surprising strength and purpose, embodying the unity of work and practice that forms the foundation of Zen training. Each morning, after meditation, the master leads his students to the fields and gardens where they grow their food. Each afternoon, they maintain the buildings and gather firewood from the surrounding forest. This daily labor isn't separate from their spiritual practice. It is their practice, another form of meditation where awareness meets the physical world. Through mindful work, the abstract teachings come alive in calloused hands and tired muscles. The younger monks have noticed, however, that Master Hyakujo's age is beginning to show. They see how he sometimes pauses to catch his breath while working in the garden. They notice the slight tremor in his hands as he carries his tools. Though he never complains, they can sense the effort it takes for him to keep pace with their younger bodies. Concern grows among them that their teacher is pushing himself too hard in his elderly years. One evening, after the day's work is complete, several of the senior students gather in hushed conversation. "The master is too old for such physical labor," one whispers. "He has already given so much. Surely he deserves rest in his final years." The others nod in agreement. "Tomorrow," another suggests, "let's hide his garden tools before morning meditation. Without them, he will be forced to rest while we complete the work." Their plans set, they disperse to their sleeping quarters, satisfied that they have found a compassionate solution. The next morning unfolds as usual. The wooden fish drum calls everyone to pre-dawn meditation, followed by a simple breakfast of rice porridge. As the monks prepare for the day's labor, Master Hyakujo goes to the tool shed to retrieve his hoe and pruning shears. But where he expects to find his well-worn tools, there is only empty space. The students watch from a distance, expecting him to give up and return to his quarters to rest. Instead, something unexpected happens. Without comment or complaint, the master simply returns to his quarters. The students exchange satisfied glances, pleased that their plan has worked. They spend the day working in the gardens and fields, periodically glancing toward Hyakujo's quarters to confirm he is indeed resting. By evening, the work is complete, and they gather in the meditation hall once more before the final meal of the day. But something is different tonight. Master Hyakujo is absent from his usual place. More surprising still, when the dinner bell sounds, the attendants bring food for everyone except the master. His place remains empty, his bowl unserved. Puzzled and concerned, the monks exchange questioning glances. Has something happened to their teacher? One of the senior students rises and goes to check on the master. He finds Hyakujo sitting quietly in his room, seeming neither distressed nor ill, simply sitting in meditation. "Master," the student says with concern, "you weren't at the evening meditation, and now no meal has been prepared for you. Has something happened? Are you unwell?" Hyakujo opens his eyes slowly, meeting his student's gaze with perfect clarity. "I did not work today," he says simply. "Therefore, I do not eat today." Feel the impact of these words as they land in the student's heart, so simple yet carrying the weight of profound teaching. The student bows deeply, understanding flowing through him like a sudden mountain stream. Without another word, he returns to the dining hall and reveals what he has learned to the others. Their well-intentioned plan now appears in a completely different light. The next morning, Master Hyakujo's tools have mysteriously reappeared in their proper place. As the morning bell sounds, he joins his students as usual, taking up his tools with practiced hands. No one mentions the previous day's events, but a new understanding flows beneath the surface of their shared work. The master has taught them not through elaborate explanations, but through lived example, the most powerful teaching of all. As the story of Hyakujo's response spread throughout the monastery and beyond, it distilled into a simple phrase that would guide Zen practitioners for generations. A day without work is a day without food. These words carry no judgment or moralism. They simply express the natural harmony of giving and receiving that governs all life. This teaching speaks to something fundamental about our human experience. In nature, nothing exists in isolation. Every creature participates in the cycle of giving and receiving. The bee takes nectar, but pollinates flowers in return. The fallen tree becomes soil that nourishes new growth. The predator culls the weak, but eventually returns its own body to the earth. Nothing simply takes without giving back in some form. Yet in our modern lives, we often lose touch with this basic principle. We seek comfort without effort, reward without contribution, consumption without creation. We want the fruit without tending the tree. The more disconnected we become from the direct consequences of our actions, the easier it is to forget that we are part of an interconnected web where giving and receiving are two aspects of the same reality. Hyakujo's response wasn't based on rigid rules or punishment. He simply honored the natural order that had guided his life, the understanding that each of us must contribute what we can if we wish to receive what we need. Even in his 80s, he recognized that his capacity to give, though perhaps diminished by age, had not disappeared. To deny him the dignity of his contribution was to deny his place in the community, his agency as a human being. As you continue to relax deeply, consider how this teaching might illuminate your own life. Where do you participate fully in the cycle of giving and receiving? Where might you expect to receive without contributing? This isn't about harsh judgment or driving yourself to exhaustion. Remember that the work appropriate for each person varies with their circumstances and abilities. The bedridden patient who offers a smile to their caregiver is working in their own way. The child learning to tie their shoes is doing the work appropriate to their stage of life. The deeper message of Hyakujo's example is about presence and participation. Are you fully showing up for your life, offering what you can in each moment? Or are you moving through your days passively, taking what comes without conscious engagement? True nourishment of body, mind, and spirit comes when we participate actively in the giving and receiving that constitutes a human life. In Zen, work is not separate from spiritual practice. Chopping wood, carrying water, preparing food, these seemingly mundane activities contain the whole of the Buddha's teaching when approached with complete presence. Each action becomes an opportunity to express our Buddha nature, our fundamental connectedness to all things. This is why Zen monasteries have always emphasized physical labor alongside meditation, not as a distraction from spiritual pursuits, but as their direct expression in the world. As you drift towards sleep, imagine yourself in that mountain monastery, working alongside Hyakujo in the garden. Feel the smooth wooden handle of the tool in your hands, the sun warming your shoulders, the earth yielding to your careful attention. There is no separation between you and this activity, no gap between your spiritual aspirations and this simple work. In this complete presence, you find yourself nourished by the very effort you offer. Giving and receiving become one movement, like the in-breath and out-breath that sustain your life without conscious thought. A day without work is a day without food. Not as punishment, not as rule, but as recognition of the perfect harmony that sustains all life. Each of us has something to offer, some way to participate in the great exchange that connects us to each other and to the earth that supports us. In giving what we can, we open ourselves to receive what we need, not just physical nourishment, but the deeper sustenance of meaning, connection, and purpose that make a human life truly complete. Let your awareness drift now to a different kind of solitude, not of mountain forests, but of inner landscapes. As your body sinks deeper into relaxation, imagine morning mist rising from a valley in medieval Japan. Within this mist stands a small, isolated temple where we encounter one of Zen's most unusual masters and his seemingly strange daily practice. Dawn breaks over the temple of Zuigen, casting long shadows across the wooden veranda. The building stands alone on a gentle slope, surrounded by bamboo groves that sway and whisper in the morning breeze. A single path winds up from the village below, rarely traveled except by those seeking the temple's reclusive master. Birds call to one another in the canopy overhead, their voices mingling with the gentle sound of a stream that runs behind the temple grounds. Inside this humble structure lives Master Zuigen, a monk whose reputation for eccentricity is matched only by the clarity of his teaching. Unlike many Zen masters who gather disciples around them, Zuigen often spends weeks entirely alone, seeing no one, speaking to no one. Yet those who have studied with him speak of his remarkable presence, how his every gesture seems to arise from a place of complete authenticity rather than habit or social convention. This morning, like most mornings, Zuigen moves through his temple in solitude. The wooden floors creak softly beneath his bare feet, as he prepares tea in the simple kitchen. His movements are unhurried yet precisely economical, each action complete in itself. There is a profound stillness about him, not of tension, but of complete ease within his own skin. Today, however, unseen by others, we're about to witness the private practice that forms the foundation of his realized understanding. As Awaken finishes his morning tea, he sets the empty cup down with mindful attention. The first light of day now fills the room, illuminating dust particles that dance in the air currents. Sitting on his worn cushion, back straight but not rigid, he takes a deep breath. Then, breaking the morning silence, he suddenly calls out in a clear, firm voice, "Master!" The word hangs in the empty air of the temple. No one else is present, yet he has clearly addressed someone. A moment passes, and then, in the same voice but with a quality of immediate response, he answers himself, "Yes?" Again, a brief pause before he continues this strange dialogue with himself. "Stay awake," he commands firmly. "Yes," comes the immediate response, also in his own voice. From this moment forward, do not be deceived by others. "Yes, yes," he responds to himself, the tone carrying both commitment and understanding. If anyone from the village below happened to be approaching the temple at this moment, they might wonder if Awaken had visitors, or perhaps had lost his mind, talking to himself in different voices. But what appears as strangeness conceals profound wisdom, a direct, embodied practice addressing the very nature of mind and self. Day after day, Awaken continues this practice in solitude. He calls to himself and answers himself, reminds himself, and confirms understanding to himself. No audience witnesses this dialogue, no students take notes on this technique. It is not performed for effect or admiration, but as an intimate technology of awakening. Each exchange emerges from and returns to the silence that pervades his simple temple. A young monk named Ganto once stayed at the temple for several weeks, hoping to understand Awaken's teaching more deeply. One morning, rising earlier than usual, he accidentally overheard this self-dialogue through the thin paper walls. Initially confused, then fascinated, he listened as his teacher enacted this strange conversation day after day. When the time came for Ganto to leave, he bowed deeply to Awaken at the temple gate. "Master," he said, "I have learned more from your example than from all the sutras I have studied. Your practice reveals the truth of non-dependence of mind." Awaken smiled slightly, neither confirming nor denying that Ganto had overheard his private dialogue. "Remember," he said simply, "the true master is always present. Whether acknowledged or ignored, it never leaves you." With these words, he sent the young monk back into the world, carrying the seed of understanding that would eventually flower into Ganto's own awakening. This curious practice of Awaken's illuminates something essential about the nature of mind and awakening. In calling himself master and then responding, he wasn't suffering from delusion but rather engaging directly with the different functions of consciousness that we all contain. His dialogue makes visible the internal processes that usually remain unconscious, bringing them into the light of awareness where they can be recognized, examined, and ultimately transcended. Consider your own experience right now. As you listen to these words, there's the part of you that hears and the part that knows you are hearing. There's the aspect of mind that might feel sleepy or comfortable, and another aspect that notices these feelings arising. We contain both the experiencing self and the witnessing presence, the one who lives through experiences and the one who remains aware throughout them all. Most of us remain identified exclusively with the experiencing self, the me that wants and fears, remembers and anticipates, judges and reacts. We become so entangled in our thoughts and emotions that we forget the witnessing presence that holds them all. Like someone watching a movie who becomes so absorbed in the story that they forget they're sitting in a theater, we mistake the content of consciousness for consciousness itself. Awaken's practice cuts through this confusion with elegant simplicity. By calling to himself as Master, he acknowledges the awakened nature, what Zen calls Buddha, nature or original mind, that exists prior to and independent of all passing thoughts, emotions, and circumstances. In responding to himself, he embodies the direct recognition of this nature. In commanding himself to stay awake and not be deceived, he activates the discrimination that distinguishes between essential nature and passing phenomena. The phrase non-dependence of mind points to the freedom that emerges from this recognition. Most of us live in constant dependence on external validation, circumstances, and conditions. We feel good when praised, bad when criticized, happy when things go our way, miserable when they don't. Our inner state rises and falls like a boat on ocean waves, entirely at the mercy of forces beyond our control. Awaken's practice reveals another possibility, a mind that recognizes its own inherent stability and clarity, regardless of changing conditions. Not through denial or suppression of experience, but through clear seeing of what remains constant amidst all change. The master he calls to is not separate from himself, not an authority figure imposing rules from outside. It is his own Buddha nature, his original face, before his parents were born. In recognizing and responding to this nature directly, he discovers the ground of being that depends on nothing outside itself. This teaching speaks powerfully to our modern condition. We live surrounded by voices telling us who we should be, what we should want, how we should feel. Social media amplifies this chorus to deafening levels, constantly pulling our attention outward and reinforcing the belief that our worth depends entirely on external validation. We become so accustomed to these external voices that they seem to come from within, driving us toward endless seeking, comparison, and dissatisfaction. Awaken's practice offers a radical alternative. What if the true authority, the real master, isn't found in others' opinions or society's standards, but in your own deepest nature? What if the wisdom you seek already exists within you, waiting only to be recognized and heeded? What if true freedom comes not from controlling the external world, but from recognizing what within you remains free, regardless of circumstances? As you continue to relax more deeply, imagine yourself in Awaken's place, sitting in the morning light of that simple temple. Feel what it might be like to call out to your own deepest nature, not as something distant or separate, but as the very core of who you are. Sense the possibility of responding from that place of clarity, of recognizing the master who has been present all along, beneath the surface noise of your busy mind. This recognition doesn't require becoming someone different from who you are now. It doesn't demand special circumstances or years of training in a monastery. It asks only for honest attention to what is already here, the awareness that reads these words, that feels your breath moving, that remains present whether thoughts are turbulent or calm, whether emotions are pleasant or painful. This awareness, this knowing presence, depends on nothing outside itself. In everyday life, Zuigen's practice might look like pausing during a moment of stress to ask, who is feeling overwhelmed right now? Who knows this feeling is happening? It might mean noticing when you've become identified with a strong emotion and gently reminding yourself, stay awake. Don't be deceived. Not as self-criticism, but as kind recognition of your wider nature. The non-dependence of mind doesn't mean disconnection from life or others. Quite the opposite. It allows for more authentic connection because you're no longer relating from need, fear, or habitual patterns. When you recognize that your essential nature doesn't depend on others' approval or external circumstances, you're free to engage with life from a place of natural responsiveness rather than anxious reactivity. Like Zuigen in his temple, you can be alone without loneliness, engaged without attachment, clear without rigidity. As sleep approaches, allow Zuigen's strange yet profound practice to work within you. There's no need to duplicate his words or method. Exactly, the essence of his teaching transcends any particular form. Simply notice the witnessing presence that remains aware as thoughts slow, as your body grows heavy, as consciousness begins its journey toward dreams. This presence, this master, neither arises when you recognize it nor disappears when you forget it. It is your birthright, your true nature, independent of all conditions, accessible in this moment, in this breath, in this gradual surrender to sleep. Non-dependence of mind, not as concept but as lived reality, offers freedom in the midst of whatever life brings. Like Zuigen calling and answering himself, in that mist-wrapped temple, you contain both the question and its resolution, both the seeker and what is sought. Rest in this understanding as you drift towards sleep, knowing that what you truly are depends on nothing outside itself, complete, whole, and free, even as consciousness dissolves into the dark waters of dreams. As your breathing slows and your body releases the tensions of the day, allow yourself to journey now to a different kind of temple, not of isolation, but of challenging encounter. Feel the weight of your eyelids growing heavier as we travel through time to witness a pivotal moment between a confident young student and a master who understood that true wisdom often begins where intellectual certainty ends. Rain falls steadily on the tile roof of Dokuwon's temple, creating a gentle percussion that fills the meditation hall with its rhythmic presence. Water collects at the roof's edge before falling in clear streams to the stone garden below, where it traces temporary rivers between carefully placed rocks. The afternoon light filters through paper screens, softened by rain clouds, creating a gentle illumination that seems to blur the boundaries between objects. In this atmosphere of gentle dissolution, a young man named Yamaoka has arrived, eager to demonstrate his understanding to the renowned Zen teacher Dokuan. Yamaoka is no ordinary student. In his early 20s, he has already studied with several masters and developed a reputation for his keen intellect and eloquent exposition of Buddhist philosophy. His confident posture and direct gaze reveal someone who believes he has grasped the essential teachings. Like many bright young practitioners, he has accumulated knowledge as others might collect treasures, proud of each insight and realization. Today, he seeks not so much to learn from Dokuan as to receive confirmation of what he believes he already knows. Master Dokuan, now in his 60s, receives the young man with neither special welcome nor discouragement. His weathered face shows the deep lines of someone who has looked long and honestly into the nature of existence. Unlike Yamaoka's animated expression, Dokuan's face maintains a quality of restful alertness, neither engaging with nor withdrawing from what arises before him. He motions for Yamaoka to sit on the cushion across from him as a temple attendant silently brings tea. The rain continues its gentle symphony against the roof as steam rises from their cups. Yamaoka, unable to contain his eagerness any longer, sets his cup down with a decisive movement. "Master," he begins, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who has rehearsed his understanding many times, "I have come to a profound realization about the true nature of reality." He straightens his back, preparing to deliver what he considers his most advanced insight. The mind, Buddha, and sentient beings, after all, none of them exist. Feel how these words hang in the air between them, bold and absolute. The young man continues, his words flowing with practiced precision. The true nature of all phenomena is emptiness. There is no realization, no delusion, no sage, no ordinary person. His hands gesture elegantly as he articulates each point of this philosophy. There is no giving and nothing to be received. Yamaoka's statement isn't wrong within Buddhist philosophy. It echoes the Heart Sutra's teaching on emptiness, the understanding that all phenomena lack independent, permanent existence. Yet something in his delivery suggests he has grasped these ideas intellectually without embodying their deeper meaning. His very certainty reveals an attachment to concepts about non-attachment. Master Dokuan has remained perfectly still during this exposition, his expression unchanged. As Yamaoka finishes speaking, a slight smile appears at the corners of Dokuan's mouth, not mocking, but holding a quality of compassionate recognition, as if he has seen this particular misunderstanding many times before. Without speaking, he reaches for the bamboo pipe he occasionally smokes, its long stem resting nearby. In a movement so smooth it seems almost casual, Dokuan suddenly raises the pipe and strikes Yamaoka across the shoulder with it. The sound of bamboo meeting flesh cuts through the background patter of rain. Yamaoka's face transforms instantly from confident exposition to shocked indignation. Pain flares across his shoulder and, more significantly, anger rises within him like a sudden flame. His breath catches, his muscles tense, and his eyes widen with unmistakable emotion. "Why did you do that?" he demands, rubbing his shoulder, the philosophical detachment of moments before completely forgotten. Master Dokuan leans forward slightly, his eyes meeting Yamaoka's with penetrating clarity. His voice, when he finally speaks, is neither harsh nor gentle, but direct as sunlight. "If nothing exists," he asks, "where did this anger come from?" Experience the profound silence that follows this question, how it expands to fill the room more completely than any philosophical discourse could. The rain continues its steady rhythm, but something has shifted in the quality of attention between the two men. In the space opened by Dokuan's question, Yamaoka confronts not just a logical contradiction, but the living reality of his own experience that transcends all concepts. The anger that flared so quickly in response to the strike was not a philosophical position, but an immediate, embodied reality. If truly nothing existed, no self, no other, no sensation, no reaction, then from where did this unmistakable anger arise? How could emptiness feel pain or indignation? In that moment of genuine emotion, the abstract understanding of nothing exists revealed itself as merely another concept, another position held by the very mind that supposedly didn't exist. Watch as understanding slowly dawns on Yamaoka's face, not the satisfaction of intellectual insight, but the humbling recognition of how far conceptual understanding falls short of lived truth. The rain seems louder now, in the silence between them, each drop a tiny reminder of the world of direct experience that no philosophy can fully capture or contain. Yamaoka bows deeply, not from social courtesy, but from genuine recognition. When he straightens, his face has softened, the certainty replaced by something more valuable, authentic questioning. Master Dokuan nods slightly, acknowledging this shift, and reaches for the teapot to refill their cups. The lesson continues, in silence, as steam rises from fresh tea and rain traces patterns on the garden stones outside. This encounter reveals a central paradox on the Buddhist path. The teaching of emptiness, shunyata, is meant to liberate us from attachment to fixed views, yet it can itself become just another fixed view to which we cling. When emptiness becomes merely an intellectual position, nothing exists, rather than a direct insight into the fluid, interdependent nature of reality. It actually reinforces the very dualistic thinking it's meant to dissolve. Truly understanding emptiness doesn't mean denying the relative reality of our lived experience, the pain of a bamboo pipe striking your shoulder, the flush of anger rising in response. Rather, it means recognizing that these experiences, while real on one level, don't exist in the way we habitually imagine, as solid, separate, independent entities. They arise in dependence on countless conditions, persist for a time, and then dissolve back into the flow of experience. This understanding doesn't negate experience, but transforms our relationship to it, freeing us from the suffering that comes from grasping at what is inherently impermanent and interconnected. In your own life, Notice where you might be holding ideas about spirituality or enlightenment as intellectual possessions, concepts you've accumulated, rather than truths you've embodied. Perhaps you understand intellectually that all things are impermanent, while still reacting with surprise and resistance when change inevitably arrives. Maybe you've read extensively about non-attachment while still feeling the sting of loss when something valued disappears from your life. These contradictions aren't failures, but invitations to move beyond the comfortable territory of concepts into the more challenging landscape of direct experience. Dokuan's question, "Where did this anger come from?" offers a practice we can apply whenever we find ourselves holding spiritual understanding as mere concept. When strong emotions arise, rather than denying them in the name of spiritual ideals or being completely swept away by their intensity, we can meet them with this question. Not to analyze intellectually, but to look directly at the living reality of our experience. From where does fear arise? From where does joy emerge? From where does confusion appear? This direct looking cuts through layers of concept and brings us face to face with the mystery of our own consciousness, neither empty nor solid, neither existent nor non-existent in any absolute sense. The Zen tradition has always valued this direct pointing over elaborate philosophy. While intellectual understanding has its place, it serves primarily as a raft to carry us to the shore of direct experience. Once there, we must be willing to leave the raft behind rather than carrying it on our shoulders as Yamaoka initially did with his understanding of emptiness. True wisdom emerges not from accumulating spiritual concepts, but from allowing them to dissolve into the immediate reality of lived experience. As you continue to relax more deeply, let Yamaoka's lesson become your own. Notice how your body feels in this moment, the weight of it against the surface supporting you, the rhythm of your breath moving in and out, the subtle sensations that arise and pass within your field of awareness. These experiences are neither absolutely existent nor absolutely non-existent. They simply are as they are, arising when conditions support them, passing when conditions change. This direct experience, not abstract philosophy, is the true territory of Zen practice. Perhaps, like Yamaoka, you've sometimes mistaken the map for the territory, believed that understanding spiritual teachings intellectually was the same as embodying them in your life. Dokuan's bamboo pipe reminds us that true understanding is tested not in the realm of elegant ideas, but in the crucible of direct experience. How do you respond when life strikes you unexpectedly? What arises when your carefully constructed understanding meets the messy reality of lived experience? As sleep approaches, allow these questions to work within you not as problems to solve, but as invitations to direct looking. The anger that arose in Yamaoka revealed not failure but opportunity, the chance to move beyond concept into the living reality that no words can fully capture. Your own experiences, whether pleasant or painful, offer the same invitation to meet life not through the filter of accumulated understanding, but with the fresh, direct attention that reveals its true nature. In this meeting of direct experience, neither grasping at existence nor hiding in non-existence, the middle way of Buddhism reveals itself, not as philosophy, but as the very ground of being, neither solid nor empty, neither permanent nor non-existent, reality shimmers with a quality that transcends all concepts, yet manifests as this very moment, this very breath, this gradual surrender to sleep. Rest in this understanding as consciousness begins its journey toward dreams, knowing that true wisdom lies not in elegant ideas about nothing existing, but in the simple wonder of experiencing whatever arises, just as it is. Your eyelids grow heavier with each breath as you journey deeper into relaxation. The boundary between wakefulness and dreams begins to blur, creating the perfect state to receive ancient wisdom. Tonight, travel with me to Imperial Japan, where we witness an unexpected moment of awakening, not in a Zen monastery, but in the streets of the capital city, where a great emperor discovers that true sovereignty begins with seeing what others overlook. The imperial procession winds through the central avenue of 8th century Kyoto. Feel the vibration of the ground beneath your feet as dozens of mounted guards in lacquered armor clear the way. Listen to the rhythmic beat of ceremonial drums and the haunting notes of bamboo flutes announcing the emperor's approach. The air carries the mingled scents of incense, horses, and the dust stirred up by hundreds of feet. Crowds line the streets, their excited whispers creating a constant murmur beneath the formal music. Emperor Daisho travels in a palanquin of breathtaking beauty, its carved sandalwood frame adorned with gold leaf that catches the afternoon sun, silk curtains of the imperial purple rippling in the gentle breeze. 8 bearers, selected for their perfect matching height and strength, carry this mobile throne with such synchronized precision that the emperor inside feels no jarring movement, only the smooth sensation of gliding above the common ground. The palanquin symbolizes his separation from ordinary existence, elevated, protected, set apart from the mundane world of his subjects. Inside this cocoon of luxury sits Emperor Daisho himself. Though only in his 30th year, responsibility has aged his face beyond his time. His expression maintains the careful neutrality expected of one who rules an empire, neither too somber nor too light, a face trained to reveal nothing of the man beneath the elaborate robes and ceremonial headdress. Yet behind this imperial mask lives a restless intelligence and a curiosity about the world that occasionally breaks through the rigid protocol surrounding him. The procession follows a carefully planned route through the capital's most beautiful districts. No unsightly buildings will offend the imperial gaze. No unpleasant odors will reach the imperial nostrils. Court officials have spent weeks ensuring that the emperor will see only the most pleasing aspects of his domain: freshly painted buildings, streets swept clean of debris, citizens in their finest attire. Even the beggars and outcasts who normally populate certain corners have been temporarily relocated beyond the imperial route. Yet despite these preparations, something unexpected occurs. A sudden gust of wind stronger than the rest catches the silk curtains of the palanquin, billowing them outward and momentarily opening a clear view to a narrow side street that was not meant to be seen from the main avenue. In that brief moment, Emperor Daisho's gaze falls upon something the court officials had overlooked: the body of a man lying in the shadow of a crumbling wall. the emperor's hand moves in a subtle gesture, and the entire procession comes to an immediate halt. The sudden silence as the drums and flutes cease, their music creates a tension that ripples through the crowd. Something has disrupted the perfect choreography of this imperial journey. "There," Daisho says quietly to his chief attendant, pointing toward the side street. "I wish to see." Confusion and concern flash across the attendant's face. This narrow alley is not part of the approved route. Nothing there has been prepared for imperial inspection. But no one refuses a direct request from the Emperor of Japan. "As you wish, Divine One," the attendant replies, signaling to the bearers. Feel the shift in atmosphere as the procession diverts from its planned path. Courtiers exchange worried glances, guards tighten their formation, and the crowd murmurs in surprise at this unprecedented change. The palanquin bearers turn carefully into the narrow street, moving with heightened caution over the uneven ground. As they approach the crumbling wall, the body comes clearly into view. It is a beggar, clearly dead for perhaps a day, his thin body covered only by tattered robes. No one has claimed him for burial. No one has even moved him from where he fell. In death as in life, he remains unseen by the bustling city around him, or at least unseen until now. Emperor Daisho steps down from his palanquin, an action so unexpected that several attendants gasp audibly. The emperor does not walk on unprepared ground. His feet do not touch the same earth as common people. Yet here he stands, the elaborate layers of his ceremonial robes gathering dust from the neglected street. He approaches the dead man slowly, his face revealing nothing of his thoughts. The courtiers and guards remain frozen in shock at this breach of protocol, while the common people who have followed the procession watch in stunned silence. No one present has ever witnessed or even heard of an emperor approaching the body of a beggar. Daisho stops before the body and stands in silence for several long moments. What passes through his mind in this extraordinary moment, none can say with certainty. But when he finally speaks, his voice carries no disgust, no judgment, only a clear recognition of what lies before him. "This man too was one of my subjects," he says, his words carrying clearly in the hushed silence. "Yet he died alone, uncared for, and remains unburied." He turns to face his chief minister, who has hurried to his side. "How can I claim to rule this land when such things happen within the shadow of my own palace?" The minister begins to offer excuses, that there are too many beggars to count, that court resources cannot extend to every unfortunate, that surely the emperor cannot be expected to concern himself with such lowly matters. But Daisho raises his hand, silencing these protestations with a simple gesture. "I wish for this man to receive proper burial rites," he commands. "And beyond that, I wish to understand how many others like him exist in my capital, and what might be done to prevent such lonely deaths." With these words, he returns to his palanquin, and the procession gradually reforms, continuing its journey to the temple where the emperor is expected for an important ceremony. But something has shifted, not just in the day's schedule, but in Daisho himself. The carefully constructed boundary between the imperial world and the reality of his subjects' lives has been momentarily breached, allowing a glimpse of truth to enter. In the days that follow, the emperor does not forget what he has seen. True to his word, he commissions reports on the conditions of the poorest districts in the capital. He establishes new almshouses and hospitals. Most significantly, he begins occasionally traveling through the city in disguise, seeking to understand directly what life is like for those who live beyond the carefully curated views presented to him during official functions. These actions earn him the name by which later generations remember him, Daisho the Compassionate, the emperor who truly saw his people. At its heart, this story illuminates one of Buddhism's most essential teachings, the practice of clear seeing. In Zen, this is called kensho, seeing into one's true nature, but it begins with the simple yet profound act of noticing what is actually present, rather than what we expect or prefer to see. Emperor Daisho's moment of awakening came not through formal meditation or philosophical study, but through the direct, unfiltered perception of something his entire imperial system was designed to hide from view. We might not be emperors, but we each create similar systems in our own lives, carefully curated routes through reality that show us only what confirms our existing views and protects us from uncomfortable truths. We scroll past news that disturbs us, avoid neighborhoods that remind us of inequality, change the subject when conversation turns to suffering. Like Daisho's court officials, parts of our own minds work diligently to ensure we see only a pleasant, affirming version of reality. Yet true awakening often begins with exactly what these systems try to prevent: the unexpected glimpse of what we've been avoiding, the momentary parting of curtains that reveals what lies just beyond our carefully maintained route through life. The Buddha himself began his spiritual journey when, despite his father's elaborate efforts to shield him from life's harsher realities, he encountered old age, sickness, and death during rare ventures beyond palace walls. These sights, so ordinary to most people, yet so shocking to the protected prince, became the catalyst for his quest for understanding. In the Zen tradition, this quality of open, unfiltered noticing is cultivated through practices like shikantaza, just sitting, where we learn to be present with whatever arises, without automatically turning away from the uncomfortable or grasping at the pleasant. We develop what the Japanese Zen master Shunryu Suzuki called beginner's mind, shoshin, the capacity to see without the distortions of preconception, preference, or protection. Like Daisho stepping down from his palanquin, we descend from our habitual viewpoints to encounter reality directly. The story also reveals the intimate connection between seeing clearly and the arising of compassion. Daisho's response to the dead beggar wasn't calculated or performative. It emerged naturally from truly seeing another human being suffering. In Buddhism, this connection is expressed in the concept of karuna, compassion, arising spontaneously from prajna, wisdom, or clear seeing. When we truly see suffering without the buffer of our usual defenses and rationalizations, the heart naturally responds. Consider your own life as you continue to relax more deeply. What might you be systematically not noticing? What suffering, in yourself, in others, in the wider world, Have you arranged your life to avoid seeing directly? What imperial processions do you maintain habitual routes through physical and mental landscapes that shield you from uncomfortable realities? This isn't about cultivating guilt or forcing yourself to confront every painful reality at once. Rather, it's about developing the courage and capacity to notice when the curtains part momentarily, revealing what lies beyond your usual field of vision. Instead of immediately looking away or rationalizing what you've glimpsed, can you, like Emperor Daisho, pause the procession of your habitual life long enough to truly see? True noticing isn't limited to witnessing suffering. It extends to all of reality, including beauty, joy, and the simple miracles of ordinary existence that our busy minds often overlook. The practice is the same: pausing, attending, allowing reality to meet us directly, rather than through the filters of concept, judgment, or habit. In this way, noticing becomes not a burden but a path to greater aliveness and connection with the world as it actually is. As sleep approaches, imagine yourself stepping down from whatever palanquin has been carrying you through life: your status, your self-image, your carefully maintained worldview. Feel what it might be like to stand directly on the ground of reality, seeing clearly without the usual buffers and filters. Notice how the heart naturally responds when we meet life this way, not with judgment or aversion, but with the same compassionate recognition that moved Daisho to action. This, too, is part of my realm, we might say, of whatever we've been avoiding or overlooking. This, too, deserves my care and attention. In this simple yet profound act of noticing, we begin to awaken from the dream of separation and control that causes so much of our suffering. Like Daisho the compassionate, we discover that true sovereignty begins not with protecting ourselves from reality, but with the courage to see it clearly, respond appropriately, and carry this seeing into action in the world. As you drift towards sleep, allow this practice of noticing to continue effortlessly. The sensations in your body, the thoughts crossing your mind, the emotions rising and falling, all can be met with the same clear, compassionate attention that transformed an emperor into a truly wise ruler. Rest in this open awareness as consciousness gradually dissolves into sleep, knowing that the capacity to truly notice, to see beyond the curtains of habit and preference, remains available in each moment, offering a direct path to wisdom, compassion, and freedom. Allow your body to settle more deeply into relaxation as we journey now to ancient China, where the boundary between spiritual aspiration and genuine realization is about to be tested in fire. With each breath, feel yourself transported across time and space to a small village nestled between mist-covered mountains, where an unexpected teacher is about to deliver one of Zen's most searing lessons. The morning sun filters through bamboo groves, creating dappled patterns that shift with each gentle breeze. Dew still clings to grasses along the narrow footpath that winds between rice paddies toward the outskirts of the village. Here, the cultivated fields gradually surrender to wilder growth, twisted pines and flowering shrubs that mark the transition to the mountains beyond. Follow this path with your mind's eye until you notice a simple structure emerging from the landscape, a small hut built of local timber with a thatched roof now weathered by several seasons of sun and rain. This humble dwelling belongs to a monk who has lived here for 20 years. Unlike the bustling temple in the distant capital, where he began his training, this solitary hut offers the perfect setting for deep meditation practice. No temple bells marking time, no complex schedule of ceremonies, no politics of monastic hierarchy, just silence, simplicity, and the rhythm of his own breath. Here, he believes, he will surely attain the enlightenment he has sought with such dedication. Inside the hut, the monk sits in perfect meditation posture on a worn cushion. His legs are folded in the lotus position, his spine straight but not rigid, his hands resting in his lap in the cosmic mudra, left palm up, right palm resting upon it, thumbs lightly touching to form a perfect oval. His eyes remain half open, gazing softly at the earthen floor before him. His breath moves in and out with the unhurried rhythm of deep concentration. The interior of the hut reflects his commitment to simplicity. A sleeping mat rolled neatly against one wall, a shelf holding a few sutras, a small altar with a simple Buddha figure, and a stick of incense, sending a thin line of fragrant smoke toward the ceiling. What you cannot see from outward appearances is the subtle pride that has taken root within him. Over these 20 years, his practice has become a kind of spiritual accomplishment in his own mind. He takes satisfaction in his austerity, his discipline, his separateness from ordinary life. He believes himself advanced on the path, perhaps even close to the enlightenment he has pursued so diligently. This subtle error, mistaking the form of practice for its essence, has grown so gradually that he himself remains unaware of it. Each day for the past year, an old woman from the village has supported his practice by bringing food. Feel the smoothness of the worn wooden bowl she carries, filled with rice and simple vegetables harvested from her own garden. Notice her hands, gnarled like ancient tree roots from decades of labor, yet still strong enough to carry water, tend crops, and support this monk she believes to be a holy man. In her weathered face, lines map a lifetime of joys and sorrows, laughter and tears, all met with the direct simplicity that comes from living close to the fundamentals of existence. For 20 years, she has heard villagers speak of the monk's dedication. For 20 years, she has set aside a portion of her own modest harvest to support his spiritual endeavors. For 20 years, she has believed that his practice brings blessings to the village and merit to those who support him. Yet in all this time she has wondered, what wisdom has emerged from these decades of meditation? What realization has bloomed from such perfect conditions? Today, as she approaches the hut with her offering, something has shifted in her usually gentle demeanor. There is a new determination in her step, a clarity in her gaze that suggests a decision has been reached after long consideration. She sets the bowl down outside the hut's entrance and calls softly to announce her presence, as she has done hundreds of times before. The monk's eyes open fully as he registers her voice. With practiced movements, he rises from his cushion and steps to the doorway to receive her offering. Their exchange follows the usual pattern, her bow of respect, his nod of acknowledgement, the bowl changing hands with minimal interaction. But today, as he turns to go back inside, she speaks words that break their established routine. "Before I go," she says, her voice carrying unexpected authority, "I would like to ask you a question." The monk pauses, surprised by this deviation from their silent ritual. "Of course," he responds, though a hint of impatience colors his tone. His morning meditation has been interrupted, after all. Feel the weight of the moment as the old woman looks directly into his eyes and asks, "In all your years of study and meditation, what have you understood about Buddha's teaching? What wisdom has your practice revealed?" The monk straightens slightly, pleased to have an opportunity to demonstrate his spiritual attainment. "I have realized that Buddha, nature pervades all things," he begins, his voice taking on the measured cadence he remembers from his teachers. "Everything is emptiness. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness no other than form. All phenomena arise and pass away like dreams, like illusions, like bubbles on a stream." He continues with similar phrases, eloquent echoes from sutras he has memorized and concepts he has contemplated during his years of practice. As he speaks, something shifts in the old woman's expression, not toward the reverence or gratitude he might expect, but toward a deepening disappointment. When he finally finishes his explanation, silence hangs between them for several long moments. Then, without warning, she does something completely unexpected. She throws the bowl of rice to the ground. The ceramic shatters on the hard-packed earth, rice scattering like snow across the threshold of his hut. 20 years! She exclaims, her voice sharp with sudden anger. 20 years I have supported your practice, and you have nothing to show for it but dead words and borrowed ideas. She gestures toward the spilled rice, the broken bowl. This rice was alive until it was harvested. These vegetables grew from living soil. Even this bowl was shaped by hands that know what it means to create, rather than merely recite. The monk stands frozen in shock, unable to formulate a response to this unprecedented disruption of his carefully ordered existence. His face flushes with a mixture of embarrassment and indignation. Before he can gather himself to speak, the old woman turns and walks away, leaving him standing amid the scattered remnants of her offering. For the remainder of the day, the monk attempts to return to his meditation, but finds his concentration shattered. The old woman's words and actions have disturbed something fundamental in the structure of his practice. Doubt begins to seep into the cracks opened by her challenge. Has his practice been truly alive, or merely a perfect performance of spiritual forms? Has he been seeking wisdom or merely accumulating knowledge? These questions circle in his mind, like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind, refusing to settle. As evening approaches, he notices the old woman returning along the path from the village. Perhaps she has reconsidered her outburst, he thinks. Perhaps she has come to apologize and restore the harmonious arrangement they have maintained for so long. But as she draws nearer, he sees something alarming in her hands. Not a bowl of food, but a burning torch. Feel the sudden acceleration of the monk's heartbeat as he realizes her intention. He rushes from the hut, arms outstretched in protest. "What are you doing?" he cries. "This hut is all I have." The old woman's face shows neither anger nor malice now, but a calm determination tempered with compassion. "If your understanding were real," she says quietly, "you would know that nothing of value can be taken from you." She steps forward, torch extended toward the thatched roof that has sheltered his meditation for 20 years. "If your realization were genuine, you would understand that this hut is no more permanent than the morning dew, no more substantial than the mist on the mountains." Before the monk can intervene, she touches the torch to the dry thatch. Flames catch and spread with frightening speed, transforming the simple structure into a column of fire that illuminates the gathering dusk. Heat radiates outward in waves, as 20 years of the monk's life, his sutras, his altar, his meditation cushion, are consumed in the blaze. Watch the monk's face as he witnesses this destruction. At first, there is shock and anger. How could she do this? By what right does she destroy what he has built with such care? But as the flames rise higher, something shifts in his expression. The gap between his spiritual theories and the reality of his attachment becomes undeniable. The emptiness he has discussed so eloquently is now a direct, lived experience as his possessions and identity literally turn to ash before his eyes. In this blazing moment of truth, something genuine awakens within him, not the enlightenment he had imagined, with himself at its center, but a humbling recognition of how far his practice has drifted from authentic realization. The fire illuminates not just the night, but the subtle spiritual materialism that has guided his path. As his hut collapses into embers, tears begin to stream down his face, not just for what he has lost, but for what he is finally beginning to understand. The old woman watches silently, the empty torch now resting at her side. When she sees the transformation in his expression, the genuine awakening that has emerged from this devastating lesson, she nods once, as if confirming that her difficult task is complete. Without further words, she turns and walks back toward the village, leaving the monk alone with the fire and his newborn insight. Later, villagers would tell how they found him sitting in meditation posture before the cooling ashes of his hut, his face transformed by an authenticity and humility that had been missing despite his perfect form. Some say he eventually built another simple shelter on the same spot. Others say he wandered the countryside afterward, teaching not from sutras but from the direct understanding that emerged from losing everything. But all agree that whatever wisdom he eventually developed began truly on the night his hut burned, when an old woman's fierce compassion cut through 20 years of spiritual pretense. This searing story illuminates one of Buddhism's most challenging teachings, the difference between intellectual understanding and genuine realization. The monk had mastered the forms of practice and memorized the words of wisdom, but these remained separate from his lived experience. His understanding was theoretical rather than embodied, a collection of spiritual possessions rather than a transformation of being. The old woman, with her direct perception and fierce compassion, recognized what he could not see himself. In the Zen tradition, this difference is expressed in the distinction between shikaku, intellectual understanding, and taken, embodied realization. Shikaku can be accumulated through study and practice, but it remains a kind of spiritual wealth that actually reinforces the separate self it claims to transcend. Taiken emerges only when this accumulated understanding is challenged, disrupted, or even destroyed, creating space for direct experience beyond concept. The burning hut symbolizes this necessary destruction of spiritual materialism that often precedes authentic awakening. The old woman's actions might seem extreme, even cruel, to modern sensibilities. Yet they embody what Zen calls compassionate means, hoben, actions that appear harsh on the surface but arise from genuine concern for another's liberation. Like a surgeon who causes pain while removing a tumor, she recognized that the monk's spiritual pride had become an obstacle that gentle correction could not penetrate. Her seemingly destructive act created the conditions for his genuine awakening, much as a forest fire, while devastating in the moment, clears the ground for new growth that couldn't otherwise emerge. As you continue to relax more deeply, consider where in your own life you might have accumulated understanding without embodiment. Perhaps there are spiritual or philosophical ideas you can articulate perfectly, yet struggle to live authentically. Maybe there are truths you know intellectually but haven't fully integrated into your being. The gap between what we know and how we live creates a subtle suffering that no amount of additional knowledge can resolve. What huts have you built? Not just physical structures, but identities, beliefs, accomplishments that you've come to cherish and protect. How might you respond if circumstances threatened these carefully constructed aspects of yourself? The monk's initial reaction, panic, protest, anger, reveals how easily spiritual understanding collapses when our security is genuinely threatened. Yet it is precisely in these moments of disruption and loss that our practice is most deeply tested and the possibility of authentic realization emerges. True spiritual maturity isn't measured by how much we've accumulated, whether possessions, knowledge, or even meditative experiences, but by how we respond when these things are taken away. Can we meet loss with the same equanimity as gain? Can we face criticism with the same openness as praise? Can we accept failure with the same grace as success? These questions point toward a lived wisdom that goes beyond concepts to the heart of what spiritual practice ultimately offers. Not security from life's uncertainties, but the capacity to meet whatever arises with presence and authenticity. As sleep approaches, imagine sitting before the cooling embers of everything you've relied upon for security and identity. Feel what remains when these external supports are stripped away. Notice the spaciousness that opens when we release our grip on who we think we should be and what we believe we should know. There is a freedom in this surrender that no spiritual accomplishment can provide. The freedom of discovering that our essential nature needs no protection, no validation, no hut to shelter it from the elements of existence. The old woman's fierce wisdom offers us this invitation to move beyond the safety of perfect form into the vulnerable authenticity of direct experience. Not by abandoning practice, but by allowing it to transform from performance to presence, from accumulation to embodiment, from knowing about to being with. as consciousness begins its journey toward dreams, rest in this understanding that true awakening often begins precisely where our carefully constructed spiritual identity ends, in the sacred ashes of what we thought we knew. Let the weight of your body surrender completely to the surface, supporting you as we journey to the final story of our night's exploration. Each breath draws you deeper into relaxation. Each heartbeat carries you further from daily concerns toward a twilight realm where ancient wisdom speaks directly to your innermost being. Travel with me now to late 19th century Japan, where two very different men are about to discover the true source of lasting wealth. Autumn paints the maple trees surrounding Engakuji Temple in brilliant crimson and gold. Their leaves drift lazily to the ground, creating a natural carpet that whispers beneath the feet of visitors approaching the temple gates. The air carries the sweet, sharp scent of fallen leaves, mingling with incense from the meditation hall. In the distance, the bronze temple bell sends its deep resonance across the valley, calling monks to afternoon practice. Each detail of this scene feels heightened, as if nature itself is preparing a setting for the significant encounter about to unfold. Through this autumn splendor walks a man whose presence seems at odds with the temple's simple aesthetic. Feel the weight of fine silk in his kimono. See how sunlight catches the gold threads woven into his outer robe. His hands, soft and uncalloused, betray a lifetime of privilege, hands that have never drawn water from a well or harvested rice from paddies. His posture carries the confident bearing of someone accustomed to deference, yet today there is tension in his shoulders, a subtle furrow between his brows. This is Tanaka, one of Japan's wealthiest merchants, a man who has built an empire of silk and shipping that stretches from Hokkaido to Kyushu. Despite his material success, something has drawn Tanaka to this temple today, not religious devotion or spiritual curiosity, but a persistent emptiness that his growing fortune has somehow failed to fill. With each business triumph, with each acquisition of property or art or influence, the satisfaction he expected has proven increasingly fleeting. Sleep eludes him more frequently now. Anxiety about protecting his wealth has become his constant companion. Even his family has noticed the change, how his mind seems always elsewhere, how joy seldom lights his eyes even amid luxury and accomplishment. This private suffering has led him to seek out the abbot of Engaku-ji, Master Soen Shaku, a teacher whose reputation for wisdom has spread far beyond temple walls, to reach even the busy merchant districts of Tokyo. Tanaka has heard that this Zen master offers insights that penetrate to the heart of human experience, cutting through confusion with the precision of a master swordsmith's blade. Though skeptical of priests in general, whom he often considers parasites living off the donations of the productive, Tanaka has reached a point where his desperation outweighs his prejudice. As he passes through the temple gate, notice how his pace slows involuntarily. The temple's atmosphere, its profound silence punctuated only by natural sounds, its ordered simplicity, its sense of timelessness, affects him physically before his mind can armor itself with judgment. For a moment, the constant internal chatter of profit calculations and competitive strategies falls quiet, replaced by a strange, almost uncomfortable awareness of his own breathing, his own heartbeat. This momentary silence within himself is perhaps the first gift of Engaku-ji, offered before he even meets its teacher. A young monk guides Tanaka through the temple grounds toward the abbot's modest quarters. Feel the smooth wooden planks of the covered walkway beneath your feet. Notice how they have been polished by countless footsteps over generations. Breathe in the subtle fragrance of aged wood and tatami that permeates these spaces. Each element of the environment speaks of care, attention, and the accumulation of mindful presence rather than material wealth. For Tanaka, accustomed to equating value with costliness, the dignified poverty of these surroundings is both foreign and faintly disturbing. The monk slides open a simple wooden door and gestures for Tanaka to enter. The room beyond is small and sparsely furnished. A worn cushion on the floor, a low writing desk, shelves holding a few scrolls and books. The only decoration is a single calligraphy scroll hanging in the tokonoma alcove, its bold black brushstrokes spelling out a phrase Tanaka cannot immediately decipher. Near the desk kneels a middle-aged man, dressed in the plain black robes of a Zen priest, seemingly absorbed in writing. This is Master Suen Shaku, the first Zen teacher who would later travel to America and introduce these ancient teachings to the Western world. Though not physically imposing, something in his presence fills the small room, not with dominance, but with complete attentiveness. When he looks up at his visitor, his gaze carries neither judgment nor eagerness to impress, just a clear, direct seeing that seems to penetrate beyond Tanaka's carefully maintained facade. Tanaka bows with precisely the degree of respect appropriate when a wealthy patron addresses a religious figure, polite but not subservient. Suen Shaku returns the bow with natural dignity, then gestures to the cushion opposite his own. No unnecessary words are exchanged, no small talk about the beautiful autumn day or Tanaka's journey to the temple. The merchant appreciates this efficiency, so similar to his own business dealings, though he doesn't yet recognize it as the Zen quality of directness rather than social expediency. Once seated, Tanaka clears his throat slightly. Though accustomed to dominating conversations, something about this simple room and this quiet man makes his usual approach feel suddenly inappropriate. "Master," he begins, the formal title feeling strange on his tongue, "I have achieved significant success in my business ventures. My warehouses are filled with goods. My ships travel to distant ports. My name is respected in financial circles throughout Japan." He pauses, unexpectedly uncomfortable with this recitation of accomplishments that in other contexts would establish his importance. Suen Shaku remains silent, neither impressed nor dismissive, simply present with complete attention. This quality of listening, not waiting for his turn to speak, not mentally formulating responses, but truly receiving another's words, is unfamiliar to Tanaka, who is accustomed to people either fawning over his success or envying it. Despite this success, Tanaka continues, his voice lowering slightly as he approaches the real purpose of his visit, "I find myself unsatisfied, restless. Each achievement brings only momentary contentment before anxiety returns. A vulnerability he hadn't intended creeps into his voice. I had believed that once I accumulated sufficient wealth, a sense of security and peace would naturally follow. Yet the opposite seems to be occurring. The more I possess, the more I fear losing it. He straightens his posture, reasserting his dignity. I've heard that Zen teachings offer insights into finding peace of mind and contentment. I'm willing to make a substantial donation to your temple in exchange for such teachings. The familiar territory of transaction, payment for services, helps him regain his footing in what has begun to feel like uncertain ground. Master Soen Shaku receives these words with the same attentive presence, neither leaning toward the offer of donation nor away from it. After a moment of silence that seems to expand beyond its actual duration, he responds, his voice carrying neither judgment nor eagerness to convince. The dissatisfaction you describe is not unique to you or to the wealthy, he says. It is the human condition to seek happiness through acquisition of possessions, status, relationships, even spiritual attainments. Yet this approach inevitably fails because it is based on a fundamental misunderstanding. Tanaka's expression reveals a mixture of interest and slight offense. He isn't accustomed to having his worldview described as a misunderstanding. Yet something in the teacher's direct simplicity prevents him from dismissing these words outright. What misunderstanding? He asks, genuine curiosity temporarily overriding his usual certainty. Soen Shaku rises in a single fluid movement and walks to the small window overlooking the temple garden. He gestures for Tanaka to join him there. Feel the coolness of the wooden window frame beneath your fingers as you look out with them at the carefully raked white gravel, the moss-covered stones, the single maple tree whose red leaves seem to glow from within when touched by sunlight. What do you see? Asks the teacher. Tanaka studies the garden, trying to discern what response might be expected. A well-maintained garden, he answers finally. Simple but harmonious in design. And its purpose, continues Soen Shaku. Decoration. A place for contemplation, Tanaka offers, increasingly uncertain about the direction of this exchange. The teacher smiles slightly. This garden contains nothing that is not already present in any patch of wilderness, stones, plants, earth, space. Its beauty emerges not from adding precious elements, but from arrangement and removal, revealing what is essential by clearing away what is not. He turns to face Tanaka directly. The peace you seek works the same way. It comes not from adding more possessions to your life, but from discovering the treasure that already exists within you, naturally. Tanaka's brow furrows. What treasure within? I don't understand. Instead of explaining further, Soen Shaku returns to his cushion and gestures for Tanaka to resume his place opposite. Once they are seated, the teacher asks a question that seems to come from an entirely different conversation. Tell me, when you were a child, before you owned your first warehouse or sailing ship, were there moments of complete contentment? Times when nothing was lacking, when presence itself was enough? The unexpected question bypasses Tanaka's intellectual defenses, opening a door to memories long overlooked. His expression softens as he remembers, lying in summer grass, watching clouds transform overhead, the perfect satisfaction of biting into a sun-warmed persimmon just picked from the tree, the uncomplicated joy of being praised by his grandfather for a well-completed task. These memories carry a vivid immediacy that contrasts sharply with the dull anxiety that has become his constant companion. Yes, he admits quietly, there were such moments. And what has changed since then? Asks Soen Shaku. Is it the external circumstances of your life, or something within yourself? The question lands with unexpected weight, creating a silence that Tanaka doesn't rush to fill. For perhaps the first time in years, he looks honestly at the quality of his own experience, not through the lens of accomplishment or acquisition, but simply as felt reality. What he discovers in this moment of clarity is both surprising and somehow familiar, that his restless pursuit of more has actually carried him further from the natural contentment he once knew without effort. I think I understand, he says slowly. But how does one return to that simplicity? I cannot unknow what I know about the world, or unbecome who I have become. Soen Shaku nods, acknowledging the genuine difficulty of the question. You're right, there is no returning to childlike innocence. But there is a maturity beyond sophistication, a simplicity beyond complexity. It begins with recognizing that what you seek is not located where you have been looking. He gestures toward the calligraphy scroll hanging in the alcove. Do you know what those characters say? Tanaka studies the bold brushstrokes. I'm afraid I don't recognize them. They say, open your own treasure house. Soen Shaku's voice carries neither command nor persuasion, just the clear presentation of what is. Not my treasure house, not the Buddha's treasure house, but your own. It has never been locked, never been empty. You have simply been facing away from the entrance, looking elsewhere for what already belongs to you. Feel how these words resonate not just in Tanaka's understanding, but in his body, a subtle release of tension, a remembering of what has always been present beneath the surface of his striving. This is not a new acquisition of knowledge, but a recognition of something so close that he has overlooked it throughout his pursuit of distant treasures. How do I open this treasure house? He asks, genuine humility replacing his usual commercial approach of negotiating for advantage. Begin by stopping, says Soen Shaku simply. Stop believing that contentment lies in the next acquisition, the next achievement, the next anything outside yourself. Stop treating life as a transaction where happiness must be purchased through effort or wealth. He reaches for a simple ceramic cup beside his writing desk and takes a small sip of tea. When you truly stop this outward movement, even for a moment, you may notice what has been present all along. As if to demonstrate, the teacher closes his eyes briefly. The room fills with a quality of profound stillness that seems to extend beyond mere silence. In this unexpected pause, Tanaka too falls quiet, not the tense quiet of waiting for a business negotiation to resume, but a genuine cessation of his habitual mental movement. For a breath, maybe two, he experiences the simplicity of just being present, neither reaching for more nor defending what he has. In this brief opening, something forgotten yet deeply familiar makes itself known, a completeness that requires no addition, a peace that depends on no external circumstance. When Soen Shaku opens his eyes, he seems to recognize what has transpired in the merchant's experience. That, he says quietly, is the entrance to your treasure house. Not a technique to be mastered or a teaching to be purchased, but a recognition of what is already and always available when the mind stops its habitual patterns of seeking elsewhere. Tanaka sits in silence, absorbing the profound simplicity of this teaching. Unlike the business advice or investment strategies he is accustomed to evaluating, this cannot be analyzed through his usual metrics of potential profit or loss. It points toward a completely different way of relating to experience itself. Finally, he bows, not the calculated bow of social propriety he offered upon entering, but a genuine gesture of gratitude. Thank you, Master. I came seeking techniques for peace of mind, but you have shown me something far more valuable. You have shown yourself, corrects Soen Shaku gently. I have merely pointed toward what was already there. As their meeting concludes, Tanaka reaches inside his robe and removes a small but heavy pouch. The distinctive clink of gold coins sounds as he places it on the floor between them. For the temple, he says. Soen Shaku makes no move to take or refuse the offering. The teaching I've shared cannot be purchased, he says, but your generosity toward the temple is welcome if it comes from the treasure house we've discussed, rather than from obligation or attempt to acquire merit. His eyes meet Tanaka's with clear discernment. Only you can know the source of your giving. Something shifts in Tanaka's expression as he recognizes the choice before him to treat even this donation as a transaction, a spiritual purchase, or to allow it to flow from the natural generosity that emerges when we recognize our inherent completeness. After a moment's reflection, he adds a second pouch beside the first, this one given not from calculation, but from the glimpse he has had of his own treasure house. As he leaves the temple, walking back through the carpet of autumn leaves, Tanaka carries with him not new spiritual possessions to protect and maintain, but a question that will continue to unfold throughout his life. What changes when we stop seeking treasure outside ourselves and begin to recognize what has been present all along? This final story illuminates one of Buddhism's most essential teachings, that the peace and contentment we seek through endless acquisition already exists within us, needing only to be recognized rather than attained. This teaching appears throughout Buddhist traditions, in the Zen concept of Hongaku, original enlightenment, in the Tibetan recognition of Buddha, nature, in the Thai forest tradition's emphasis on citta, the heart, mind that is naturally radiant before being obscured by defilements. Each points toward the same fundamental reality, that our endless seeking outside ourselves obscures the very treasure we're looking for. As you sink deeper towards sleep, consider how this teaching might illuminate your own experience. Notice how often your mind moves in the pattern Tanaka demonstrated, believing that contentment lies in the next achievement, the next acquisition, the next relationship, the next spiritual insight. This pattern creates a perpetual sense of insufficiency, a subtle background feeling that something is missing or incomplete. Yet whenever this seeking momentarily stops, perhaps in moments of natural beauty, creative absorption, or deep connection, a completeness makes itself known that depends on nothing outside itself. Your own treasure house has never been locked or empty. The capacity for contentment, clarity, and compassion exists within you as naturally as fragrance exists within a flower. These qualities don't need to be manufactured or imported from outside. They need only to be recognized and allowed to express themselves. The journey is not one of attainment, but of removal, clearing away the habitual patterns of thought and behavior that obscure what has been present all along. This recognition doesn't mean abandoning meaningful goals or responsible planning. Tanaka didn't need to renounce his business to benefit from Soen Shaku's teaching. Rather, it means approaching life's activities from a different starting point, not from lack seeking fulfillment, but from wholeness expressing itself uniquely through your particular gifts and circumstances. This shift in perspective transforms everything while changing nothing about your external reality. As consciousness begins its journey toward dreams, allow this teaching to work within you, not as another spiritual acquisition, but as permission to recognize what is already present. Feel the natural completeness that exists in this very moment, not dependent on circumstances being different, not waiting for some future achievement, but available now in the simple miracle of awareness itself. This recognition is the beginning of a different way of being in the world, neither grasping for more nor defending what you have, but living from the natural generosity and clarity that emerge when the treasure house of your own nature stands open. The path of awakening is ultimately not about adding something new, but about removing the obscurations that hide what has always been true. Like clearing away clouds to reveal the sun that was shining all along, spiritual practice at its heart is the gentle, persistent work of recognizing our own treasure house, the natural awareness, compassion, and wisdom that are our birthright, requiring nothing outside themselves to be complete. Rest in this recognition as sleep approaches, knowing that what you seek has never been anywhere but here, waiting patiently for you to turn your attention toward home.